And a good Monday afternoon to you. Welcome on into lunch with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com, our Facebook and Twitter pages, along with YouTube, none of which have been taken down as we welcome you into this week. I'm Joe Roderick, joined alongside by Mike Claiborne. What's going on, Claibs?
Everything. We've got a lot to talk about today. Football for sure, some hockey, you name it. As you know, I'm not happy. Well, I'm not happy. I'm just confused by a Hall of Fame selection. So we got a lot of things. So let's get this baby rolling.
I saw you complaining about it on Twitter last night. We'll get into it. I'll give you the platform. I'll give you your soapbox. You can stand on it and you could rant away on it. As we are brought to you, as you see, by Ameren, Illinois, Ryan Kelly, thehomeloanexpert.com, and Mungenast Alton Toyota, Mungenast St. Louis Acura. A place I talked about it. We talked about it again on Weekend Joe. Andy Hanselman, my co-host for Weekend Joe, just got a new 2020 Toyota Highlander from the folks there. I believe he said it's a platinum edition. As he went in there for one car, and they told him that, hey, you know what? We're looking to get rid of these 2020s. They made him a great deal on that car. What's up with Maya? What's she barking at?
Who knows? Who knows?
I got one here next to me that can't bark anymore, so I'm lucky there. If she starts howling, there's definitely something going on with her. But yeah, big weekend of football, 6 games, the super wild card weekend. Before we get into the games, the X's and O's and everything, what did you think of having 6 playoff games on one weekend, first time ever?
I think it was too much. I mean, unless you had a particular favorite, unless you were betting games, if you were just a casual fan, I didn't find any of the games overly exciting. I mean, I thought the first game with Buffalo was a fun, entertaining game. Chicago, New Orleans was a snoozer. The way Pittsburgh got creamed early, you turn that off. And the other games are, they were playoff games. So I don't know, it was almost like a regular Sunday, I guess, with regard to 3 games. But I was hoping for more after the first game. But you know what? They're moving on, and we'll see if they can do themselves better. Yeah, and I mean, this is what happens when you don't have a chance to have your traditional work-throughs and your practices, and you don't even have your head coach on the sideline for one game. So a lot of things had to change for sure.
When you have games like that, if you are just a casual NFL viewer, if you have just games, if you're just excited that playoff football is here, which for most years, I mean, by the way, tomorrow is the 5-year anniversary of the Rams voting, or the NFL voting for the Rams to leave St. Louis. Seems so much longer than 5 years ago since that happened down in Houston. But when you just have the games laid out, as I did on Saturday and on Sunday, I kind of went about my day knowing that was on in the background, knowing that it was either on the TV at home. If I was out running errands, I listened to the games on the radio. And from noon till 10, both Saturday and Sunday, I had football in my life, but I still went about my day as normal. And I enjoyed that. I liked having that both days. And as you said, I am the new biggest fan of the Buffalo Bills. I'm on that bandwagon, as I plan to be for here on out. And it was nice to start the weekend with my Buffalo Bills getting the victory over the Colts.
Mr. Front Runner here. Okay, that's cool.
You know what? I've been on with them all year. I looked at Josh Allen and I said, this is the quarterback of the future.
What's your record now?
Oh, I went 4-2 this weekend, so I'm in first place. Yeah, 4-2 in the playoffs.
4-2 for the weekend.
In the playoffs, restarted the counts on that. Yeah.
Okay. I see how. I guess with you being commissioner, you can make it up as you go. Okay.
You went 4-2 as well. Both you and I went 4-2 on the weekend. Andy Hanselman, Frank Cusimano, and Brian Hoffman, they all went 3-3. I was the only one of the 5 of us that picked the Rams. I was the only one of the 5 of us that picked the Browns.
So I picked up a game on Hoffman.
You did, yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you were 2 back on him, and now you're just 1 back of him on that. So I should have gone 5-1. For some reason, I went with the Bears. I thought maybe there was a chance that they could pull something off. You know what? This is what happens when I'm down by as much as I am. I got to go against the grain on some of these. So that's what I did in that. And I thought maybe they pull something off. Maybe they get a defensive touchdown. And I tell you what, if Wims doesn't drop that touchdown pass, that entire game, just the entire the complex of that game just changes so much. The ball goes, that wasn't a drop. I don't know what you call that, because that ball was put right there on him, and it didn't even hit him in the hands. That thing went straight through his arms. That's one of the worst drops that you'll ever see.
I agree with you. Definitely a game changer for sure. But we'll start with that game. The Bears need to blow the whole thing up. Get a new coach, get a new quarterback, get a new player personnel guy. That team just doesn't do anything for me.
Do you go new quarterback though?
Yeah.
He started off the season with a few wins. They got a few wins at the beginning of the year. The last 4 or 5 games of the season, they were averaging 30 points a game with him back at quarterback. They showed that they could put up points.
Just a guy. You can have him. You can have him. I think the Bears need a culture change.
I agree on the head coach and the GM, and usually a quarterback change comes with that. But I think when you look at what you have there and you look at building other pieces around that, I think maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing to just stay.
How many more years are you going to build around this guy?
You're not getting one of the top 3 picks out there, one of the top 3 quarterbacks out there this year, right? There's 3 very good quarterbacks coming out of college.
There's a free agent out there,
but there's going to be a lot of revolving door. You think yesterday might have been this weekend might have been the last time we see Phillip Rivers. It might be the last time that we see Ben Roethlisberger. This might be the final time that we ever see Drew Brees play. We're not sure what Tom Brady's future is in the NFL. He's 43 years old. So when you look at all of the quarterback jobs that are going to be open around the NFL, how confident are you that you're going to land one of those top free agents out there, or get one of those young quarterbacks that maybe deserves like a Brandon Allen, who played well with Cincinnati? Do they, though? Do they?
The Bears, I don't know.
They have to re-sign Allen Robinson. Khalil Mack is making how much money? And then you have to build pieces around that.
You keep your Bears in. If you feel like they're going to move in the right direction, go right ahead.
That's the thing. I don't know if they will or not. It's hard to say what direction they're going to move in. But I think Trubisky, I feel like he might have earned another year.
I don't think Nagy has.
No. Ryan Pace definitely hasn't.
Yeah. So maybe the coaching change more than the quarterback change.
Did you watch any of the Nickelodeon broadcast for that game?
No, I'd rather watch the Boomerang channel.
I'll tell you this.
Cartoons.
I'll tell you that I don't know if you saw the the tweet from Kurt Warner, who his son sat and watched the entire game. He says it's the first time his son ever sat and watched an entire NFL game. And I had the feed on because I thought, you know what, as you're watching 6 games during the week, I'll let one of those feeds be something silly. I'll see what they do during this game and how they bring it down to a child's level to understanding what it was. And I thought they did a decent job. And I thought it was entertaining for the most part. I did not hear Jim Nantz or Tony Romo speak one word on Sunday because I watched the entire game on Nickelodeon. And I feel like if they partner with other sports to do that, I feel like that's a good way of growing all games. NBA, baseball, hockey. If you put it at that level and you get kids to watch it and you have some of their characters involved to show how the game is played or explain some of the rules, I don't think that's a bad idea. And also I think one thing it did was it showcased how talented guys like Nate Burleson and Noah Eagle are, because those are 2 trained professional broadcasters when it comes to going over the NFL, and they had to bring it down to a level that they're probably not used to, and they put on a really good broadcast.
I'm going to say one thing, and I may be dating myself. I'm going to go back to a commercial that used to be on TV. Silly Rabbit, tricks are for kids.
Right. And
it's for the kids. That's cool. If that's what it takes, I don't think it's a bad idea. It's just not one I'm interested in seeing. But you know what? I get it. And, as we talk about this, that's something baseball should be taking a long look at, considering how old their fan base is, how you can get kids involved. And I'm sure that somebody's going to pick up on this and try and take it to the next level.
Yeah, and unfortunately, kids were subjected to watching that terrible Bears offense if that was the first NFL game that they got to see, because yesterday was not the after that drop pass, it did seem like the entire team, just the air was left out of the balloon after that happened, and they struggled to score until late in the fourth quarter. But that wasn't you want to look and jump around to some of the other games. Mike Vrabel, Mike Tomlin, the two decisions that they made on Sunday to punt late in the game when they did, I probably should later this afternoon tune in to Nashville Sports Talk Radio or Pittsburgh Sports Talk Radio, because I imagine those are going to be two of the hot topics going on in those cities.
Well, when you lose, it's a hot topic. And I think that's what you have to take into account. I wonder how many times did they go for it, or did they do something that wouldn't be the norm that they were successful with? I think that those things happen. It's part of the game. It's part of coaching. Sometimes you're not going to get it right. And is it a bad call, or was it bad execution?
I think Vrabel's where they were on the field to punt in that situation. What was it? 7-8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. You're on the Ravens 40-yard line. To punt there was giving up.
You know what? I'm gonna stop you there. I don't think it's giving up. I think it was his lack of confidence in his offense. So therefore, he thought his defense was going to try and steal it back, get them in better field position. And I think that's what it came down to more than anything else, because neither offense. And I was talking to Frank Cusimano this morning, and he talked about, Roethlisberger threw for 500 yards. Yeah, he threw it 68 times. So
47 completions, yeah.
Yeah. And so, that just told you there was a lack of real offense. And Derrick Henry, once they started to put 8 in the box, and in some cases 9, and they stopped him, Tennessee didn't have another answer. One of their top receivers was hurt. So they really took that away. They took the outside game away from him. So I thought it was more the fact that both coaches were relying on their defense, and their defense couldn't make the stop when they needed to.
And the other one with Pittsburgh, as the third quarter comes to an end, you have that entire TV timeout as you're switching sides of the field from the third to the fourth quarter. It was 4th and 2. You had all the momentum in the world right now in the game, and you gave it up.
Yeah. Again, I think a lack of confidence in the offense. I don't think they had a 3-yard play. And I think we just touched on the fact of how many times they threw it. So, both teams will look at it and realize that they have some shortcomings, and work on trying to be better next year. I don't know how many whole teams there are out there. I think Buffalo would be whole. Kansas City would be whole. Green Bay perhaps would be whole. But there aren't a lot of whole teams out there. They're all lacking in something. And we've talked about this from the beginning of the year. No matter how much you throw the ball, you have to find a way to run the ball also. And the team who got beat yesterday didn't have a running game.
I really thought that the Titans were one of the scariest teams that played in that first weekend, and thought that they could have made a nice run. I felt if they would have won yesterday, they would have easily won the following week with that momentum and went into the AFC Championship game, but didn't happen. But one team that definitely was not whole yesterday were the Browns, and they came out up 28-0 at the end of the first quarter, as you mentioned, without their head coach and without a couple of players as well. In fact, one of the starting offensive linemen, Baker Mayfield, met for the first time before the game. Didn't even know who the guy was. The guy showed up and introduced himself to Baker Mayfield and said, "I'll be blocking for you today." And it was
but that tells you something about the game, where a guy can walk in off the street and start and be successful, compared to guys who go through mini camps and OTAs and extra work, and they do all that stuff. So you have to wonder how much coaching and how much practice is truly needed.
Yeah, if you get into a system like that, then I guess, if all you're doing is knowing, hey, you just got to block for him for one day, for one game, figure it out. we'll go from there. Do you think it was the right move by the end? I mean, I know during the regular season, if a coach had tested positive, they weren't allowed on the sidelines. They weren't allowed to be part of it. Do you think the NFL should have made an exception in the playoff to allow Stefanski to have some sort of communication? You muted yourself again with the there you go.
No, you can't treat a playoff game differently than a regular season game. You stay with the rules that you thought about. And you know what? Maybe that's something they go back and revisit with technology as it is. But I think you also run into some other communication issues. Hey, there's enough guys running around with headsets on. Okay. So I don't really have a problem with it. It's an unfortunate situation. It was unforeseen, obviously. And we're dealing with unforeseen issues in our society. So I didn't really have a major issue. And I'm not changing the rules just because one guy's positive and somebody else isn't.
Which game?
Chance you take.
Which game are you looking forward to the most next weekend? You have Rams and Packers, Ravens and Bills on Saturday, then Browns and Chiefs, Bucks and Saints on Sunday.
All of them. I think they all have a very unique approach that I'm anxious to see. And now we're going to see who the real teams are. I don't think there is a mismatch in this. I don't think there's a mismatch in this group compared to what we had this past weekend.
Tonight, it is the College Football National Championship Game, Alabama and Ohio State down in Miami, Florida. There was talk last week if this game was actually going to be played today or if it was going to be moved to next Monday, January 18th. Apparently, all the teams passed whatever protocols they needed to pass. The game is on. Have you seen enough of Ohio State to even make a prediction for this game tonight?
Yeah, I think they're a good athletic team. They do some things well. I just think Alabama's just got more ring time. And I think that's going to be a difference maker. They've got more ring time in big games. They've got more ring time on the field this year. They're coming in with a couple of injuries now. They may get Waddle back. If they get him back, that's going to be even harder for Ohio State to try and defend both he and the Heisman Trophy winner. So overall, I think Alabama is a superior team. But we've seen teams with a puncher's chance get in this thing, and who knows what can happen. But I'm comfortable with Alabama.
That game's tonight. Usually, I haven't looked yet, but I know ESPN usually does a good job of having multiple streams for these games, whether it be a coach's room, analytics, the home broadcast, the one school's broadcast, the other school's broadcast.
Yeah, they'll do it all again.
Yeah, and I like that. I like flipping around and watching a few of those different ones throughout the night. That's usually more entertaining than the game itself. Seeing how many different ways to watch it.
The voice of the Crimson Tide was one point the voice of the St. Louis Blues. Did you know that? Eli Gold.
I feel like I've known that. I feel like Frank has him on every year whenever Alabama's on the national
he's a big auto racing guy too on the radio, but he was here for a year. I thought he did a nice job. Now that was a long, long time ago, but that's his connection to St. Louis, and that's all I got on Eli.
We're going to get into the Blues in just a second here, but first I want to tell you about one of our other sponsors, Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. Hey, he has started a new program called the Eat Local Meals. He's trying to engage with communities and rally support for local restaurants to give them patronage to help this movement. He's asking us, he's asking all of you to nominate a local restaurant so they can shine a light on them and find opportunities to give them business. Their goal is to help 1,000 local area restaurants, and they need your help to get there. Go to thehomeloanexpert.com and look for the Eat Local Meals link, and you can click on that and nominate your restaurant today. That is thehomeloanexpert.com, and click on the Eat Local Meals link to nominate your restaurant today. It's very simple that you just put, all you have to do is just fill out your name and put the restaurant's website on there, and you will help out a local restaurant in your community. So check them out online at thehomeloanexpert.com.
Groovy.
Yep. I think we're going to have more stuff on that up on the website here shortly as well. So Blues this week. I know you and Alex Ferrario talked about it a little bit last week on the Ferrario face-off. But the Blues will drop the puck, hopefully, on Wednesday against the Avalanche. I know already one NHL team has had a bit of a setback. The Dallas Stars announced that they will not be starting the season the same time as everybody else due to COVID concerns.
Well, I mean, this is how we live. This is what everyone feared, but everybody knew this could happen. The NBA's already canceled a couple of games, and
Two more
um,
today.
yeah, so it's something we're going to have to deal with. And you're going to be better. You might be better off being lucky than good at this point. And you got some wiggle room as far as open dates where you can try and do this. It's not like it's a fan issue right now. So let's keep our fingers crossed and see if we can get people healthy and get as many games in as we can. As far as the Blues are concerned, I think the Blues are like the other teams in this league. They don't know what they have. All they've done is practice against each other. No exhibition games. Not that you see a lot, but I don't know if this team knows what kind of shape they're in. Or have they become too predictable to each other, which is why some guys were more impressive than others. We don't know how good the goaltending is, especially after they've seen the same shots from the same guys for the last week or so. So I think when it comes to starting at square one, I think that's safe to say. Now, obviously, there are some teams who have more skilled players, but these skilled players, we don't know how good they're going to be once the gun sounds because we don't know what kind of shape they're in. What is their timing really like? But if there's one group of people who can really turn it on when they need to, it's hockey players. So I'm excited about what's going to happen. They're in a very unique division, as we talked about, but this is a unique season. There seems to be more depth on this hockey club. And I think there's a little bit more of an edge to this team, too. And I'm going to start with Kyle Clifford, who will make some guys more accountable. I thought one of the things that hurt the Blues last year, they didn't have anybody who could make the other guy accountable, on the other team when it came to playing a body or taking liberties with your best players. So you got that situation remedied, and I think you have a little bit more offense on the third and perhaps fourth lines because they're going to have to do more than just check and provide grit. They're going to have to score at some point. And if they're penalty killers, the same thing. This game is going back to a scorers league, and if you can score, then you've got a chance to be successful. So to rely on six guys, I don't think is going to get it done anymore.
It's going to, as you mentioned, it's the same for every team. It's going to take a few weeks into this season to figure out what those line combinations need to be, who is going to play well. And you see right now, they have Krug with Parayko right now in practice. You're assuming that's going to work out for them when the season starts, but we don't know. We don't know how long that's going to last, or if it's going to last the whole season, or if they're going to have to switch something up at some point, because right now they're just playing against each other. The intensity isn't there when you're playing against each other. We'll see that intensity starting Wednesday night when they actually go and play another team. But you mentioned the NBA, and the NBA, so last year in the playoffs, you had the NHL, they were in their own bubble up in Canada. The NBA had their bubble down in Orlando. Both leagues decided this year that they were going to leave the bubble and they were going to go back and play on their home courts. They were going to travel. They were going to have road trips. They were going to do everything the way they had gone back to doing. And you're seeing the NBA really, really struggling. I think, what is it, the Pelicans game? Is it the Pelicans and Mavericks tonight's been canceled? They've already canceled the Bulls and Celtics tomorrow. There have been another handful of games that have been postponed or canceled already in this past week. So you're seeing the NBA is having a really difficult time outside of the bubble. I know that it would be really, really fast for the NBA or for the NHL to do the same thing. But how far into the NHL season do they go before they say, you know what, maybe we need to do this as well and just have everybody in one city?
Well, I don't think you can pull it off logistically at this point. I think the other issue is I think you have to start the clock when you have your first positive and assume you're going to miss at least 2 games along the way, which is why you have the open dates on the schedule where you can move things around. You got a little bit more flexibility than you would in baseball where you'd have a 4-game series or a 3-game series. In this situation, maybe if you miss a couple of games, you can stagger them over the open dates throughout the course of the season. And you might be able to pull this off. You may end up having a 48-game season.
I think when you look at the difference, I think when you look at the way the divisions are set up, it might be in their best interest to say, you know what, the Central, they're going to be playing all their games in Chicago. There's enough rinks up there. There's enough arenas with rinks up there. They're going to play in Chicago. The one, they're going to play in New York. You have
Easier said than done, but here's the problem you're going to have, Joe. Logistically, space, hotels who understand the protocols that are going to be required. Now, you have to think about they had multiple months to prepare for Canada and Florida. To pump the brakes now and clear out a whole hotel and say that's going to be your base without that staff being trained, without making arrangements as far as food deliveries and things of that nature. Because if you ask any player in the National Hockey League, the last thing they want to do is go back to a bubble. It didn't go
10 months into this. You would think
go as well. They wanted it to from a player being happy standpoint. Now they got the games in, but they were miserable. And we saw teams that quit because they didn't want to be there. You don't want to do that again. So you might want to tough this out, because I don't think the logistics would catch up to the need of what these players and these teams and this league is going to need between now and the end of the regular season.
I think you look at it and yeah, you know what? They might not care, but guess what? You're getting paid right now. They weren't getting paid when they were in the playoffs, right? They weren't making their salaries when they were in the playoffs. You need to get as many of these games in right now if you want to make the money that you signed on a contract for.
I think you still have wiggle room with open dates. I'm not going to push that button yet. I just think that and maybe they have a logistical plan on the board. Okay. I think the NHL has probably shown some smarts in a lot of areas, but you know what, to pause at the first sight of issue, I don't think that's the way to work. I think I'm going to try and work through this, and maybe we learn along the way. And you bolster your taxi squads as well, where if you get players out there, so be it. But I think you just have to be better in understanding. Okay, if I got 2 guys positive and I do the tracing, I'm going to have 4 more guys positive, and therefore I'm going to have to move those guys. So I think the key here is the tracing has to be monitored on an hourly basis, in my opinion. And I'm sure they are. I'm sure they're doing it. But I think that's the route to go compared to trying to bundle everybody up and find hotel and accommodations and everything else that comes with it at such a short time schedule.
As we mentioned, the Blues' first game is going to be this Wednesday against the Avalanche. News came out today. A friend of yours, Mike Milbury, was announced he will no longer be with the NBC broadcast.
Anybody surprised by that? I wasn't. I thought last year was probably all they could stand, and I like Mike. Okay. We had him on the podcast, and I consider myself having a good relationship with him, but there are things that he's done leading up and to, including what he did last year, that the network just probably said, you know what, enough is enough. There's a lot of other guys out here that we can find that won't give us the headache at night or waiting for the late night phone call because of something he said or something he did somewhere. He's had a very good run. You got to remember, this guy's an Ivy League grad, had a great playing career, was a general manager and a coach and an analyst. He's done everything. I wouldn't say he was successful at everything, but he's had an incredible run. And I'm sure if Mike Milbury doesn't work another day in hockey, I think that'd be okay with him. He's done a pretty good job financially. So I wish him the best.
14 years with the NBC NHL team. So 14 years with that. We will not be seeing him when the season starts this week. Let's move on to baseball. This is probably the longest we've ever gone into one of these shows without mentioning anything baseball, with everything else that's going on in all of the other sports right now. But we did see a big trade last week, as it's I believe Thursday afternoon. Francisco Lindor of Cleveland's baseball team traded to the New York Mets along with Carlos Carrasco. In return, was it 4 prospects that the Mets sent back to Cleveland? If you are a Cardinal fan and you look at what it took to get Francisco Lindor to New York, are you upset today over what the Cardinals could have probably given up to get him?
Well, what were the Cardinals going to give up?
They were none of the top prospects. Not one of the Mets' top prospects were given up. So if you could have gotten Francisco Lindor and not given up Dylan, well, I think Dylan Carlson, we can just say he's off any trade talks now. But if you could have gotten him without giving up Matthew Libator or Nolan Gorman, would you have done it?
I think the question is, what was the need of Cleveland? If you notice, they took some middle infielders. That's the one thing the Cardinals don't have. Now, maybe you could change the dynamic of the deal. I think there's also the hope that Lindor was going to sign with the Mets. And I think if you're the Mets, you feel good about being New York. You got the richest owner in the game. You can do this deal. If you're the Cardinals, you're saying, well, wait a minute, we don't want to get too carried away here and having to keep this guy. And I think that's been proven by the pushback on the Arenado situation. So I'm not disappointed. I'm disappointed he's not a Cardinal, yeah. But I think I need to know a little bit more of the parameters of the deal before I start saying, see, here we go again. I think that's just too easy of a cop-out. I think I need to know what was actually involved and what did the Mets see in those prospects. Because as I mentioned, they're middle infield guys and guys that are maybe a year or two away. Cardinals don't have it. They do not have middle infielders who are ready to go or anywhere close. Now, you want to put Delvin Perez in the deal and Connor Robertson? Yeah, maybe. But, I mean, one has been a disappointment, and the other one is still 2 years away from being a big leaguer. So I think that maybe they just didn't have the pieces for it. And when you talk about prospects, you take Gorman, Montero, and there's maybe one or two other guys in your organization that can swing the bat. Other than that, you've got some pitchers that we still don't know whether they can pitch or not, but that's what prospects are. They're prospects or suspects. So there are a lot of things I think I'd have to weigh before I would feel like this was a deal that matched up with the Cardinals.
There was a media member in New York after this trade was made that came out and was talking about trying to bolster all of the middle of the field defense and mentioned the Mets should go out and try to trade for Harrison Bader. And quickly, I think, found out that many Cardinal fans were very okay with the prospect of giving away Harrison Bader to anybody. Any rumblings of any moves that we could possibly see within the Cardinals organization this week? Now that we're closing in, I mean, we're 10 days, 11 days into January right now. John Mozeliak said that January was the new December. Are we going to see anything happen this week or next?
I don't know about this week, but I know we're going to see some activity. You can't go into spring training with this current roster. Is it going to be a trade? Is it going to be a free agent? Who knows? But I'm sure there'll be some activity. This is not a winning roster as we know it right now. You can win a division.
I was going to say, what roster in the NL Central is a winning roster right now?
Yeah, that's true. But you can win a division with this current roster. But I think we're talking about moving it beyond the first round, and you're going to need some help. And so I think that there's still some opportunities out there. We'll just have to wait and see how creative they want to be.
Let's talk about the NL Central rosters right now, because we saw the Cubs trade.
Because there's nothing there.
Right,
none of those teams are going to be competitive enough to win anything.
No, and the Cubs trade away Yu Darvish to the Padres, so they get rid of him. The Pirates weren't going to be anything to worry about anyway, but they get rid of Josh Bell. They trade him away. You look around and you try to figure out who has the star power, who has
nobody.
And I mean, the Brewers have Christian Yelich. The Cardinals have Paul Goldschmidt and Jack Flaherty. The Reds have Joey Votto. And who knows what the health is of Rizzo and Bryant in Chicago, and if Chris Bryant will be on the roster come opening day.
Like I said, there's no reason to talk about the rosters in the division because there's no star power. None.
So can you get excited going into this season? Let's say it's a 162 game schedule. Can you get excited knowing that the Cardinals have to win 75, 80 games and they could win the NL Central?
You're gonna win more than 80 games. You will be competitive. And here's what I would say. Just because we don't have much to talk about in January doesn't mean we won't have some talk about in July. I think John Mozeliak's proven that on a number of occasions that he doesn't really overly concern himself about the start. He's got his barometers on what dates are important, kind of like with me and Flag Day. And at that point, they assess the market again. Maybe somebody's going to be available that they didn't think would be at some point during the year. So to put all the eggs in the hope basket at this time of the year, I don't think does anyone any good. because there's a lot of things that have to happen well before the moment of truth will rise for this ball club.
Yeah, it's, as I sit here, I think of the idea that it's a playoff team, the way that they're built right now. I try to get myself excited about it, but I think in normal years where you look at a Cardinal team and think, hey, all they have to do is make the playoffs and go from there. I think with what the Dodgers have done and what the Padres have built, there's no way. By the way, speaking of the Dodgers, I apologize for not bringing this up sooner, but Tommy Lasorda passes away at the age of 93. Give me a good Tommy Lasorda story. I'm gonna, without even asking you before we went on the air, I know that you crossed paths with Tommy Lasorda at some point during your career.
One of the greatest ambassadors, the two greatest ambassadors for baseball that I've been around, Buck O'Neil and Tommy Lasorda. You couldn't ask for two better people to promote the game and talk the game. He had a number of stories. I was on a radio show recently, and I remember Tommy Lasorda for pitching to Jack Clark. Enough said. But he was a delightful person. And I ran into him, this was 2 years ago because we didn't go out there last year, and his health was starting to fail. And he was asking about certain things in St. Louis because that was one of his favorite spots. But here's a story that, I haven't told you this one, but, he was a scout at one point for the Dodgers. And there was this kid that he really liked in Pennsylvania, really good player. He was all everything. And he went to his house. His mother made him some pasta, and he loved his mother, sat out on the front porch, and he wanted to try and sign this kid. And the guy was like, I really want to play baseball, but I promised my mother I'd go to college. That was Joe Namath. So he didn't get him, but he got a lot of other good players along the way. And game will miss him because you know what? We don't have guys who have that zeal about the game like he did. He was a good manager. He managed some really good ball clubs. Like I mentioned the fact he pitched to Jack Clark. Yeah, there was a lot of other guys he pitched to and he beat them. But he was a person that the game needs more of. And where that next generation comes from, I don't know. But it was sad to see him go.
The 93 years old, the last baseball game that he got to see was the Dodgers winning the World Series this past October. So that's one way to go out.
I agree. Hey, while we're on the subject of baseball here, the winter warm-up is this weekend.
Yeah, it is.
And there's a lot of virtual programming that we're going to have on that I would suggest. I want to make an adjustment here. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that I saw that Polo is going to be part of that. I meant to. I was texting him about that. I asked him how much for a virtual autograph, and he responded to me in language that I think Tommy Lasorda probably would have appreciated. So,
well, they've got a lot of things. Tickets are on sale for the virtual experiences, and you can line up. We're going to have the reunion of the 2011 championship team. That includes Alan Craig and David Freese and Lance Berkman, Jason Mott. Q&A with Gold Glovers, Tyler O'Neill and Paul Goldschmidt, Ozzie Smith, and Jim Edmonds will be part of it. Paul DeYoung is going to put on a cooking demonstration. And we'll have the Cardinals Connection. It's a newlywed style game with your favorite Cardinals and their spouses, including the Goldschmidts, the Carpenters, the Edmonds, and the Gombers. The best dressed birds wardrobes, including Dexter Fowler, Jack Flaherty, and Harrison Bader. I wonder who's emceeing that. I'd like to be part of that. And there's a lot of other fun things that are going to be there. And you'd be amazed how inexpensive the virtual experience is. And all you have to do is just go to Cardinals.com and go to the winter warm-up site, and you can click on and see all the other fun things that they're going to have. But this is going to be different. It's going to be unique. But I would just suggest people check it out because it's going to be a lot of fun.
That locker room, the virtual, the virtual style, whatever you said, the dress.
We don't have any.
No, I'm saying between those, you said Fowler, you said Flaherty, you said Harrison Bader. Name me one Cardinal in that locker room that's upset that they weren't included in that.
We don't have any. This is not dressed well, in my opinion. I'm just saying.
Harrison Bader has his own Instagram account for his fashion. It's Bader. Is it Bader's Closet or Harris? I think it's Bader's Closet is the Instagram page where he shows off his style on Instagram.
Yeah. I think if in a certain era that stuff works, and maybe I'm just a little too dated for it. And if you want to be in a boy band or things like that, be a flight attendant. I mean, there's some guys who dress in that manner. But I'm more of a guy who liked the elegant look like when Ozzy would dress on a road trip. And there were some other guys before him that would dress. Today's player, they don't really have to. Tommy Pham was the last best dresser this team had.
I'll tell you this, as I'm going through Bader's Closet's Instagram page, there's a lot of stuff on here that I would wear. There's not a lot of stuff on here that I would pull off, though. There's a big difference between those two things.
Yeah, you're right. But who's to say he's pulling it off? Just because you bought it doesn't mean it works.
Hey, before we get out of here, I haven't watched it yet, but I have seen the reviews for the Tiger Woods documentary that the first episode was released last night. Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, you know what? It was a lot of footage of things we've seen as history. I think the relationship with his dad is something that we didn't know a great deal about, and how they kind of orchestrated everything in the early stage of his life. And once Tiger became a grown-up, he wanted to do some things differently. It's a two-parter. I think it gets probably a little bit more on the raunchy side on the second part. I thought it was okay. I mean, this guy has lived an interesting life, and his identity has never been truly exposed because he's kept a lot of things to himself. And I think one of the interesting elements about him is, his dad envisioned him as being a person that people of color could gravitate to and change the game. Tiger initially said that in following his dad's words, but I think we've seen over time that that's probably not the Tiger that everybody thought he was going to be. So you have that to deal with, his personal life growing up as a teenager and how that was managed. I think it's worth the watch. And I think the relationship with his dad was unfortunate at the end. And so I don't want to let too much out of the bag, but check it out.
That was on HBO, so any of those HBO apps would be able to carry that for you. It's the Tiger Woods documentary. Quickly before we get out of here, any interviews lined up for this week?
Yeah, we're going to have Art Holiday coming up, and Art Holiday was a delight to visit with. Kevin Weeks will join me tomorrow. Alex Ferrario will join me tomorrow, and also after the first Blues game. So we've got a lot of stuff coming up, a lot of hockey, and then we'll be talking some winter warm-up coming up this weekend. We didn't talk about your guy, Tony Romo, though, and I got to get this out of my system.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead. So Tony Romo, from what I understand, during the game on Sunday –
They did. Remember when they announced that Joe Buck was going on Hall of Fame? They did the same thing with this.
Okay.
I don't have a problem, but I guess my question is, how did Tony Romo get that good where he's going in the College Hall of Fame and there's two guys who had better numbers than him that aren't? And we're talking about Eastern Illinois, okay? This is not what I'd call a football hotbed. Now, if he's at Alabama or Ohio State or Notre Dame or somewhere, maybe there's a line to get in. It's Eastern Illinois. And I guess it's not about what you did, it's who knows you. Because I think if Tony Romo was giving golf lessons or was doing something else, I don't think Tony Romo would be in the College Football Hall of Fame, especially, and Howard Balzer brought it up to me last night about his numbers. Oh, okay, yeah, he had good numbers. But there are two guys that had better numbers. So what made Tony Romo better than those two guys? Is it because he's on TV and it was a
Absolutely.
Nice? Yes. Okay, so if that's the case, then now it's not a skill issue, it's a popularity issue, which is why I get more and more pissed off at Halls of Fame, more now than ever before, because it's all about who knows you.
Yeah.
And that's not what this should be about. It's about who knows your career and what you did. And that's not happening these days.
That's you're done? You got it all out?
Hey, congratulations. Hey, Tony, congratulations. I'm sure you were surprised and certainly happy that you're in.
If you want to go back and check out the archives, this past weekend I had Jeff Goodman on. from Stadium. We talked.
Very good visit, by the way.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Talked a lot of Illini, a lot of Mizzou, a lot of SLU with him, and then had the NFL draft scout Matt Miller on. We talked a little bit about the games that you already saw this weekend, but we do kind of get into the quarterbacks of the NFL draft, and you're going to see at least one of those guys tonight playing in for Ohio State, one of those top quarterbacks going this evening. So we'll if you want to go back and revisit that as well, also up there for your listening pleasure. And then you had Paul Westhead on that. We put that up on Friday as well, the former NBA coach. So lots of NBA talk, a lot of stuff up there on claibsonline.com. This has been Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Munganess St. Louis Acura, Munganess Alton Toyota, and sponsored by Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. Find him online at thehomeloanexpert.com. And also, before we do get out of here, I just want to mention, since Jay decided to chime in on things down there, I have been told that Jay and Iggy are going to do a video previewing the Sony Hawaiian Open. Is that what the golf tournament is this weekend?
Yes.
They're going to help you pick your DraftKings teams for that, and they're going to do a video that they're going to put up on claibsonline.com. So
I'm looking forward to it. Those two guys know their golf and know who's hot. So for those who are looking for some action, I'd start with Jay and Iggy. They're going to do a good job with that.
So look for that later this week as well. For Mike Claiborne, I'm Joe Roderick. Have a great rest of your Monday, everybody.